All right, fam. Here we are, Crushing Limits Unleashed podcast. We have another special guest tonight, IFBB Pro Chris DiDomenico. Welcome to the show, man.
What's up, guys? Thank you for having me.
Yeah. How
To
you
be here.
been?
Good. Everything's going well. Busy. How are you guys doing?
Real
Good.
good, man. Yeah, staying busy. It's been a while since we've seen you in person. We just haven't made it down there.
I know. What brought you down there whenever you were there before? Do you have clients or?
So here's kind of the story, and I'll give you kind of the backstory. So originally, okay, so we saw you win the overall at 2017 Nationals.
uh, like, were you
Yeah.
there?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I did the show. I was a light heavy.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so I was a light heavy,
Didn't know that.
and then of course, after the light heavies got done, we're like, oh, we got to watch the overall. So we had really good seats. Kenny was like right in front of us, doing his like, come on, Chris, let's go.
Yeah. Wow,
So
I had no idea.
yeah, so we saw the whole thing. Obviously, you took the overall, and then years passed, and my parents, like, I grew up in Rochester. So my
Okay.
parents were there, so we'd go back and forth, hit, IPG in Rochester. And then at some point on social media, I had seen your name kind of pop up, and I was like, I mean, I have this, just hatred for Minnesota and the cold. So I'm like, there,
I agree. I agree with that.
yeah, I was like, there's no way. There's no way Chris moved here. Like I figured you were an East Coast guy, and I was like, oh, there's why would anyone move? Why would any pro move here? So then when I started to see the pictures, I was like, no shit, Chris did move here.
Yeah. I mean,
So tell us about that. Like what brought you to Rochester specifically?
um, well, I started dating my girlfriend. She was in nursing school, and basically, she got a job at the Mayo Clinic. So you can't you can't tell someone not to go, get a job at the Mayo Clinic. So
Yeah, that's
you know,
it.
there wasn't much I could do there. And I mean, I'm a pretty open-minded guy, and at that time, I was just started kind of doing online coaching, so I wasn't tied to anything. So I just kind of went for it and moved. I mean, I never thought at any point in time in my life I would move or five six however many states over, but yeah, we moved here in spring of 2021, which is 4 years ago now, which is crazy. um and I kind of lucked out because I remember when we moved here, like, I googled gyms obviously first, and Rochester had IPG. And so I went there and I was like, wow, this is a cool gym. um And I mean, at that time, that's all that mattered to me. And, it was a good fit. It was better than my gym at home. And yeah, I just kind of set up shop here for that. And that's it. That's the rest is history since then. Obviously, like, things have grown and whatnot, but I mean, that's how I got here.
Yeah. Now, where was home before?
Pittsburgh.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
I miss
Gotcha.
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
are you all of you born and raised in Minnesota?
No.
No.
China for me.
Oh,
yep.
well,
Hmm.
I'm sure that's a lot different than Minnesota.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I don't like the cold. I'm like, why am I here?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I was actually born in Santa Monica, California.
Okay.
But my dad basically he got a job offer he couldn't refuse in Rochester, not the Mayo, but Olmsted Group.
Oh,
Yeah, so
very similar.
he was an anesthesiologist, so he got a great offer. So we moved when I was like 5. So I'm basically from Rochester.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot different. I mean, it is and it isn't. The weather's not a whole lot different. I mean, it just, to me, it gets a little bit colder in the winter. I mean, a decent bit colder. But I'll tell you what, like, it gets hotter in the summer too than Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not a big fan of the Minnesota nice. I think that's BS.
Yeah, it's like the passive aggressive.
Yeah,
Yep, yep,
it's
yep.
very it's like an awkward passive aggressive. I think I mean, I don't really consider Pittsburgh East Coast, but I guess it is East Coast, but like people are just more straight up, uh down to earth, even friendly, I'd say. You know, just it can feel a little awkward here at times, I guess you could say, with people.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, outside of that, it's great. I mean, it's what do I do? I go to the gym and that's basically it.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. How often do you get back to Pittsburgh?
When I first moved here, I went home, I'd go home probably 3, 4 times a year. And then that gets less and less. I think last year I went, I usually go like every 6 months
Hmm.
visit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to go more, but it's a time thing, I guess. You know.
Yeah. And it's not getting any cheaper either, you know?
Mhm.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm not particularly fond of flying either,
Hmm.
Okay.
you know. Um, I used to like driving 12 hours, but now I don't as much. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's crazy.
That's a drive.
I'd fall asleep.
yeah.
Oh
I mean,
my.
that's the hardest part is staying awake for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Well, Allie, you fall asleep on the 20-minute drive.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Help me out. Jeez.
um,
Oh, that.
So let's take a step back here. What I always ask this to everyone. So what got you interested in bodybuilding? And then what kind of pushed you over the edge so where you're like, all right, now I'm going to do this. I'm committed. I'm going all in.
Well, I started lifting weights when I was 13. It was for high school football. Um, I was really small, skinny kid, and obviously you had to get bigger for football. And I instantly liked it. And then I did that for like 4 or 5 years in high school. And then whenever high school was done, um, I went to college, and then I wasn't playing football anymore. And then it was just like I don't know. I feel like it was different back then in a sense where like everybody lifted weights. And not only did everybody lift weights, but everybody wanted to be big. And so like I kept lifting in college, and then I got lucky my freshman year in college, and I met I met a bodybuilder. He was in my dorm. Um, and I really looked up to him. And then one day he talked to me and he basically said, "Hey, you should do a show." And that was like, you know, the greatest thing ever to me at the time. And I was 18 at the time. And so then I did a couple shows and I did well. And then, I mean, instantly, like, never looked back since then. I mean, I was, in college, I always say I could count on one hand the amount of times I drank in college. Like, all we did was lift weights, like, all night. And, I sound so old saying this, but like, there was no social media. I mean, that was right when Facebook started for me.
Mhm.
Whenever I was in college. But like, it was just different, like we spent all of our time in the gym, and like you didn't just sit on your phones. Like, I don't know. It was just so much different with so many different things. And like, I don't know, there was so much camaraderie in my college, like so many friends and stuff. And yeah, it was just, I was very lucky. It was a very special time for me. And that's just what said it. Like, I never stopped since then.
I feel like most lifters, they've graduated from some sort of like sports to get into lifting because you do lifting for the sports, but it's more like, you know, powerlifting and just like conditioning. And then you get like a glimpse of it and then you fall in love with it because that's kind of like what happened to me. Like I did tennis and track and we had to do certain lifts for it. And then I'm like, man, this feels good. Like I actually know what a pump feels like. And I'm like, I want more.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting because whenever I started lifting weights, I always lifted in like the football gym,
Hmm.
and then I mean that was all high school. Like I lifted with the football players. And then I remember going to college and then all of a sudden I was lifting in like a rec gym. And it was really nice where I went, but it was this interesting thing to me because it was like so many people in the gym all of a sudden that did not know what they're doing. And like just guys lifting weights and girls and like, you're used to like athletes, I went to a bigger high school, like it was used to like a very like athletes, like real militant style training and like everyone's driven. And then all of a sudden I was in a college gym, like a rec gym. It was like packed with people.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was just like, wow, there's so many people here and like you can do whatever you want. It was like a big just a different feeling,
Mhm.
together.
Like you can do your own thing. I feel like when I
Yeah.
was in high school, like lifting class, you had to do more like what everyone else was doing. And then when I went to the gym for the first time, I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what machine to go to. But it's just more of your own pace, which I like. And then you're just like in your own world from there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like when you do sports lifting, you're doing hang cleans and squat,
Yeah,
bench press,
all
and then
that
all of a sudden you
bullshit.
go to the gym and there's like pec decks and there's bicep machines and there's like all this other stuff and you're just like holy cow, like, and I mean that's really cool when you first get exposed to it because you're like wow, this is bodybuilding,
Yeah. Hmm.
but it was a big transitional period for me.
Hmm. Yeah. I hated hand cleans though. Oh my gosh. I would
Yeah,
always
you
complain
did
about my
great.
wrist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I was in high school, I used to skip like one of my classes. I can't even remember which one. I would skip it, and there was this, I don't even know what you call, but like they had combined the weight room with like the janitor's office, and there was two doors to it, and we figured out that he would leave his door open because they would lock the gym after so that kids like me wouldn't go down and sneak into the weight room, but I would sneak down there, go through his office, and it go right into the gym. And we'd have to keep the lights off because obviously, we didn't want like patrolling teachers to find out we were lifting in there. And we'd be lifting and, you'd have to rack it really slow
Yeah.
so it wouldn't make any noise.
That's commitment right there. Jeez.
That's funny because like I think that it was that way. Like I remember being in high school, like our high school gym sucked, and it was like, I mean, I think it was like the wrestling gym, and it was probably like the size of my bedroom. I mean, it was tiny, and they had like 50 pieces like crammed in there. But like it's just interesting where like you didn't have as many gyms, and I mean there just wasn't anywhere near the amount of like knowledge and everything. Like I remember being in high school going to the library, and it's like, you say that today and people are like, what is the library? Like I remember renting books out of the library, and reading them like books and like, it's makes you sound so old, but like, I don't know, it's just weird how it's just crazy how much everything's changed so fast.
Yes.
It's scary to think where it'll be in another like 5, 10 years.
Chris, that is honestly one of the main reasons I brought you on here is because you're an old school guy. So, we got a lot of stories when like, stuff came out, the first pre-workouts, protein shakes, all that stuff. So tell us
Yeah.
about like your first show. Like, was it, a great experience? Obviously you got hooked, but tell us about the prep. Like, did you do your own prep? Obviously back then, everyone wasn't a coach, right?
That was a big thing. And that's what nobody realizes today is like, you know, whenever I did my first show, it was the NGA Natural Mr. Pittsburgh. And I just did a teenage division, but like there was no coaches back then. Okay. And
Right.
like we largely just did it ourselves. And if anybody had a coach, you were like, oh shit, this guy's gonna be good. Like, it was scary. It like I remember like we'd go to weigh-ins and before, and then like if you ever seen like a competitor show up in sweatpants with a coach next to him, like you knew they were gonna look good.
Yep.
Ironically, like there was no bad coaches back then, or like maybe if they were bad, they were just like a hardcore bad where they were too tough or something. There wasn't just like idiots, I guess you could say. It sounds mean, but um yeah, I remember I did my first show. I was 18 and I didn't know anything. I started like 200 pounds, dieted down to like 150, 155. And I won my class, and I mean, I felt like it was like the greatest thing ever. I mean, at the time it was, um, but like there was there was no science involved. I mean, I starved myself for 12 weeks, and we did cardio on top of cardio, and the cheesy thing is like that makes you tough, because then when you get help, you value it, you appreciate it. I mean, sky's the limit at that point. Like when you do it on your own and you're just starving yourself to get in shape, then whenever somebody does help you, it's like, wow, like, you know, and I think that's one of the biggest things today is like now there's so many coaches, everybody has a coach. There's no sifting process. There's no anybody can be a coach. Like, and so like what it does is it devalues having a coach. I mean, I remember back when I started weightlifting, there was no IFBB pros like around.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever came in contact with an IFBB pro, it was like they were gods. And I would do anything to just like talk to a pro. Now it's like I work in a gym as an IFBB pro, and like these kids don't even care. Like it's so different. It's just a completely different world. You know what I mean? But I mean, it was a good positive experience. It was tough, but it was a positive experience, and it's what hooked me my first show.
Now, when you say starving yourself, because like most of us remember, some of the ridiculous things we did, or, for sure your first show. Tell us about your diet. Like, what did it look like? And what are some of the things, obviously, now you're an experienced pro. What are some of the things for sure would have changed right off the bat?
So whenever I did my first show, I did have a guy at a local gym help me. He helped me pose, and he helped me like, the bare minimum of like eat 6 times a day and like, that type of thing. But I remember at that time it was like, we ate egg whites and oats for breakfast. And then it was like, you know, I was in college, so I would sneak lunch meat turkey from the cafeteria. Um, so we ate like lunch meat turkey and like sweet potatoes or something for a meal. And then I did one chicken at the time. I mean, I don't want to say I was broke, but like you don't really have money in college. So like my one chicken breast meal at the time was like, I felt like a pro bodybuilder eating my one chicken meal. Cooking my one chicken meal in like the dorm kitchen. So like pre-workout, I had like literally like a chicken breast with some rice. And then post-workout would be like a protein shake with like 40 grams of oats. It wasn't essentially starving yourself, but you're looking at probably like a 12 to 1800 calorie diet. You know what I mean? And, you're just doing all that cardio. And I mean, you're like eating air compared to, I mean, you guys know there's bikini girls eating more than that today. So yeah, so that was basically it. I mean, obviously then today there's like, God, I mean, it's a whole, my food never gets that low even, or it hasn't gotten that low. You know what I mean? Like you just don't get anywhere near that low of calories.
Right. Yeah. I have a client right now. She's in college. She's 18. Shout out Elizabeth. But she's just like, she's killing it for the mindset because, like, what she does is, I don't know if she goes to a friend's or somewhere over the weekend. She cooks her food, and then she'll baggie it up, transfer all the food to her, tiny ass dorm room fridge, and then she'll heat it up in the microwave in her room or, in the hall. So it's like
That's hardcore.
it
Yeah.
it
That's
is,
impressive.
I remember, living in dorms too, and it's like I thought it was hardcore, but I wasn't even close to that level even.
Yeah. I remember the following year I did a show, and I remember like one of my meals at one point in time was 3 cans of tuna. Like that was my last meal of the day. And I mean, it's kind of funny because after that year, I don't think I ever ate tuna again. You know what I mean? And I mean, we were eating tuna out of the can. It's kind of funny because haven't even thought about that in years, but like, my God, was that disgusting? I mean, it's
Anything for
hungry
the protein.
as hungry as you are, I mean, eating when you're eating the tuna out of the can and you got to drain it, and like the whole room thinks like that is just an ungodly, disgusting experience. But
Yeah.
but I mean, it's cheap, and in college, it's lean protein.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny. I totally get it. I had to do the same thing my first prep, and I was in the dorms for that prep, and I did same thing, 2 or 3 cans. And like what I would do is I hate fish, so I would
Me
have to
too.
like hype myself up.
Yep.
I'd put like some AC/DC on or something,
Let's go.
and
I know
I'd have
what
this,
that's like.
yeah, I'd have this big ass cup of Crystal Light fruit punch and just shovel it in and just like swallow. I would finish the 2 or 3 cans in like a few minutes, and then that was it. I was done.
Yeah. It's kind of like in the off season whenever you're pushing food and you got to do the same thing where you just like eat, drink, eat, and then like you're just trying. You're
Yep.
drinking so many fluids per meal because you're trying to like just get the food down.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Right.
that sucked.
The things you do for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so tell us about your training. Like how did you start off training? And obviously, your training may or may not have evolved over the years, but how did it start with the training, like your first show? Were you like
Um,
high volume, low volume, or
I was always a volume guy, even whenever I was young.
okay.
Well, no, actually, I shouldn't say that. I originally was a more like Dorian style, like top sets, because that's what I learned in football. Like everything was pyramided. So even if you were doing a lat pull down, like you were doing one all out set, you know what I mean? Now it wasn't as fancy and it wasn't as like, perfect. It was just the general idea that you were like everything was like one top set. And then as I trained more and more in college, kind of around bodybuilders, then I kind of got the 3 sets of 10 principle, like a more of the like volume, more sets. And then honestly, kind of since then, I feel like I've always just been a blend of both. Like, I think that, I mean, present day, I mean, I do everything, but like, I think that in general, I'm one of the only guys on the planet that still believes in shocking the muscles. Okay. I do believe like I'm very big with changing my workouts, changing like constantly changing my workouts, that type of thing. Um, but at the same time, like I blend like a progressive overload into it. Because I know like what my top sets are. So like I might do squats today and then I won't do squats again for 3 weeks. But the next time I'm doing squats, it's a top set and I'm trying to beat those reps. So
Hmm.
like maybe all those other weeks I did volume, but then whenever I get back to squats, it's like a one top all out set. And the thing that people don't realize too is like as you progress in bodybuilding and you get stronger and stronger, like you can't just do progressive overload like indefinitely. You can, I mean, or else everybody would be incline pressing 500 pounds, you know what I
Right.
mean? And squatting 1,000 pounds. So there's a lot more that goes into like training as a whole. Um, I think that present day, I do a lot less volume than ever, a lot less work sets. So like now I think I typically do 1 to 2 work sets per exercise. Like I very rarely ever do 3 sets anymore. Like
Do you
more
do
like
back offsets or
um
no?
yeah,
Okay, okay.
I do a lot of like I do like a lot of like one top set, one back off set, 2 top sets, back off set.
Hmm.
Um I feel like typically what I do now is like just 2 top sets.
Hmm.
And I mean, and that'll even go with like my clients programming because I kind of just like mirror my programming for clients with what I do. So like my clients that have been with me for probably like, 4 or 5 years are probably used to like sats upon sats upon sats. And, now a lot of things are just like one top set, 2 top sets. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's all you need though. Like I can already like after the second set, if I try for a third top set, I could just feel myself like going downhill from there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, the one of my favorite things all time to do was for squats and deadlifts I like to do 3 high volume sets. Like I still think to this day, like I used to always do like squats, like 3 sets of 15 to 20, or deadlifts, 3 sets of like 15 to 20. And I mean, I
That's like cardio.
it
Oh my,
is. I mean, it's incredible stamina. And I mean, still to this day, I think that that's actually one of like the biggest like hacks to like freak success. You know what I mean? Especially when you do it and you start to progress. And I mean, if you're using a work set weight, like once you get strong and you're doing like 10, 15, 20 reps on a deadlift, I mean, you're on the floor after that. You do it for 2, 3 work sets, like, you know, it literally just like shuts your nervous system off. It's so intense.
hmm yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all follow you, obviously, but I mean, you're incredibly strong on, it seems like all movements. Is there anything you would consider like you're just, you
And your
know,
form is like,
Well, thank
anyways.
you. I appreciate that.
yeah, I mean, is there anything you're really just like not strong at? Because like a lot of the stuff that I see is pretty insane, the amount of weight that you're moving with good form.
The one thing I never pushed my strength on was flat bench. And
Right.
that was because it was a intelligent thing. Because flat benches ended more careers than anything.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I've done the most I've ever done on flat bench was 4 plates for like a few reps, but like that was middle of the workout, and it was not like it was like a all out situation. I've just I mean, ever since I was a kid, I just knew like you don't go heavy on bench. I mean, whenever I was a kid and in college, I did it, and I think that was a big thing too. In college, like we were always benching heavy, and it never did anything for my growth. It did nothing. You know what I mean? Literally, it did nothing. I was like flat chested, and it wasn't until I was like, okay, like I got to stop just like flat benching heavy every week. Like then I grew packs. As weird as that sounds, but um, I would say like that's just my one lift that like I don't really think is that impressive, just because I've never felt like pushing it.
Right.
Mm.
I feel like, especially to, I don't know what it is, if it's social media or all the new machines, but, for a while there, I know you can relate. Your average person would say, "Hey, Chris, how much you bench?" Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
still. I mean, that's
remember.
still the biggest question, ironically.
Is it? I
Yeah.
never get it. I mean, but, that used to be like
What?
the marker for, your strength.
It's the big question among guys that don't lift.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like, if I like, for example, I remember one time I was like literally actually driving to Pittsburgh, and like you stop at a gas station. That's like something like a gas station clerk asks you, like,
Right.
"Whoa, man, how much do you bench?" You know what I mean? And it's just like,
Man, you look like you lift. Gotta know
yeah,
the bench.
She's got a lot of gas station stories.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
People hitting on her in the gas station or
No, I had one time I was in Vegas. This was before Chris and I were together, and I was walking on the strip, and some guy was like, "How much do you squat?" And I just turned around and I said 500. And I kept
What
walking.
did he say?
He was like, "Oh my God." Like,
Just
Yeah.
bullshit.
you just lie. When someone
Yeah.
asks, I just lie.
You know
That's
what? I kind of wish I would have done that more. But here's the thing with like those same guys is like no matter what you tell them, they're like, I at the same time not going to be impressed. You know what I mean? That's like the catch of it
Looks
all.
like what you would lift, yeah.
It's so like I don't even bother. It's like no matter what I tell you, man, you're gonna be impressed by it. So like I just like shrug it off.
hmm
yeah,
If you want to ask me like a real question, ask me what like I behind the neck shoulder press, or you know dumbbell press, like something that actually requires like finesse and strength.
Yeah.
hmm
All right, so where did the Bang Like a Champion, when did that start? Because I love the name, it's so catchy, but when did that start? I mean, you obviously made it a thing for you.
That started back in 2015. At the time, I was living with my best friend, and we both just we were at a point in time in our lives like we moved, we like basically just moved in together, got a place, and he got back into lifting, and two best friends like lifting again. It was like, oh, like when are we, when are we lifting tonight? That type of thing. And like we use the term banging, like when are we banging? Um, and like at some point in time, it just kind of like slid in of like bang like a champion, and it was like me and him that essentially created it, and then um, it stuck. Like I started hashtagging it, and it stuck, and then we were like we should get shirts made, and then yeah, I mean that's really just as simple as it was, and then it was like okay, then I ended up winning my pro card, and you know people started buying the shirts, and then I just kind of pushed it from there. That's a very simple version of the story.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. I love it. I love
Yeah,
stuff like that.
there was always an idea too, like I actually never had any type of sponsorship, and so like that was a big thing with me, like whenever I whenever I won my pro card, and I mean it's kind of funny because 2017 is now 8 years ago, which is like okay, wow. um but even then it was like a lot different than it is now, and I feel like it's just like changing so much. But I remember when I won my pro card, everybody's like, "Well, man, like the phone's gonna be ringing next week once you get home," and like, you're so high on life, you believe anything and everything. And I remember like the following week, I was literally just like waiting for like BSN to call me and be like, "Hey, Chris, here's your sponsorship," and nothing. I never got like any type of sponsorship or anything from it. And I mean, partially like it's my fault to a degree. At the time, I really didn't have a social media. Um, but that's the point, is like it was like kind of like more and more the changing of the times where like it was about you self-promoting. And it wasn't like it was whenever I started, where it was like all you just had to do was go win your pro card and like bam, you got a sponsorship. And so, like, with that being said, I didn't have anything at the time. So that was like me. So that was like extra incentive for me at the time to like push Bang Like a Champion,
Mhm.
where I was like, okay, this is like my FU to the system. Like, here's my brand. You know what I mean? And so, like, that made it more special. And, that made it like, yeah, like nobody wants to sponsor me. Well, I'll create my own brand and run with it type of thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
I love that. I listen to as many podcasts as I can. And like I know recently within the past couple months, there's a few people that they kind of like look down on like teams or like brands. And I'm the complete opposite, which I can tell you are too, where it's like, no, you have to brand yourself because it's not just Chris, it's Bang Like a Champion. Like you've created a brand, and in today's market, like that's so important.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. And I agree with you. I've heard that as well. Um, and I don't know why anybody would say that, because like who wouldn't want to have like a team behind them,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
who wouldn't want to have a brand? I mean,
Yep.
here's the thing. At some point in time in bodybuilding, you realize it's a business, and
Hmm.
we have to make money. You know what I mean? We're making that from our brand, from our coaching, from our social media. And it's like, you know, some people are fortunate enough to get big sponsorships and, have that path. There's those people. And then there's people like us that create a brand and a following. And then there's people that don't do anything. And, those are the people that usually have something to say about it. Um, but yeah, I think that like that's, in what universe is it not cool to create a brand and people support it and follow it? And like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that that's realistically, I think that's probably the most cool thing that you could do, impressive thing.
Exactly. I mean, like, and I'm sure you can relate too, like I started coaching 22 years ago and, I remember my first client and it's like you'd never think when you're starting that people would even want to wear a Crushing Limits shirt or a Bang Like a Champion shirt, like, and at one point, people, we had gotten together, almost 8 years ago and people were like, hey, you should like create shirts. And like in my head, we were still, we were a pretty big team then. And it was like, I was like, why? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's so silly now just looking, growing as a coach mentally and physically, but it's like as soon as we launched them, it just exploded,
Right.
like and then later on, I don't know if you know this, but we created our own pre-workout, Gold Rush,
No, I
and
didn't know that
we
actually.
had we had 5 different pre-workouts over 5 years from just the brand.
Hmm.
Wow.
And we were selling it all over the country, like we sold 100 units before we even had the units.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like you said, man, like creating the brand is so important. And, we always take huge pride when someone wants to just wear our shirt or, buy a hat because they're supporting you and what you love, right?
Yeah. And I think, the thing with today's society too is like it's, for people like us, it's very special whenever they do buy into it and they support it. Um, and there is the idea too of the people that don't support it. And, this is, people love to support famous people and they love to support influencers. But yet sometimes when it comes to supporting like your fellow like competitor at your gym, there's no support and there's
Yep.
nothing. It's just like your local businesses, like, how many times do you have family members or friends that want coaching for a discounted price? Or
Hmm.
they want some sort of a deal. You know what I mean? And it's people love to support like the top, but like on the bottom or in the middle or where you're climbing the ladder, there's no support. So that's why it's special to clients, friends, whoever that does show support. It's very legitimate and genuine. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this a little bit earlier today, and one of Chris's clients that's been with him for coming on 6 years now, and it's like that's so meaningful because a lot of people want to jump ship and go to a name brand coach, like, and then,
That's
but
a that's a big thing too. Like, that's I'll deviate a little bit topic wise, but like I think that that's one of the big things, what people don't understand getting into the sport is like they want this. That's okay. So that's where like at a point in time where like I would be anti-team because like people think that like they're going to hire this top coach and they're going to turn pro
Hmm.
and or they're going to they're going to get whatever. And the thing is like you hire a top coach. Okay, what makes them a top coach is like it doesn't mean they're essentially a top coach for one, but you're just another number. You're just another name on their spreadsheet. You know what
Yep.
I mean? And I think it's me. I think I'm always the most. I always target the bodybuilders the most, because obviously I am a bodybuilder. But it's like these guys that are bodybuilders, where it's like they don't have a coach, which we won't even waste our time talking about them, or it's like they feel like they need a Matt Jansen or like a Hani Rambod or all these like top coaches. And here's the thing: you're not going to get their time.
Hmm.
Okay. And here's also the thing that like when you're young and you're trying to climb the ladder, you just have to put the time in and you have and like as nobody wants to hear this, you just have to master the basics. You have to get big, get lean, get big, get lean. And like if you work with somebody that has more time that you know maybe isn't as famous or isn't as social media, whatever, like you're going to get more time, attention. It's like the local people, like, why would you not hire a pro at your gym? Unless like the pro's a douchebag, but like, why would you not hire a pro? Like, even if that pro, like, they've had to have done something that you can like get their knowledge from. You know what I mean? And it's just like people like, they gravitate towards like these top names and these top brands. And it's the same thing where it's like how they don't jump ship or do jump ship. It's just like people just get lost in the I don't know if it's social media that does it so much now or what, but like, dude, if you're lucky enough to have a chance to work with a decent coach that's local or a decent coach that will take you on that has the time and is a good coach, obviously, like you should eat that up. Like you don't need like the big name. Like my coach, Mike Eli, he turned me pro. He wasn't famous. And I'll tell you what we did to turn me pro was nothing special. Like literally, it was nothing special. What I did, everything back then, there was nothing special to it at all. I just did it every year for so many years, and then I turned pro. But like, I'll tell you what, like Mike was a coach at the time that gave me the time of day, or he went to my shows, like he was local. And at that time, like we said, my first show, I didn't have any help. So like, wow, I actually had a chance to work with like a local pro at the time. And I jumped on that. And it was all I needed. Like a
Hmm.
local pro that basically taught me this is the basics of this is how you peak. And that's all I needed at the time. And boom, like I just like went right up the ranks. And I think that's just like my quick soapbox thing. Is just like people get lost in these big names, and it's just like, dude, you're just a number on their book. That's it.
Yeah, I was definitely guilty of that. Like my first prep, I went for someone that was a little more like famous, and I did look up to her for a couple of years, and I was like, okay, let me just fill out the application. And then I hired her, but she would not respond for a couple of days. She wasn't very meticulous with the plan that she gave me. It was pretty broad. And then when I got the opportunity to meet, Chris and Steph, like Chris already showed me right off the bat, like, hey, like look at my transformations I got from all these clients that I have. And I was like, okay, okay. And I did like the idea that like he was local too, so I can go to him if I need something. And then like as soon as I hired him, like you can tell like he's actually super initiative. He responds right away. Like I remember when I texted him and the first text I got, it was like within a couple of minutes. I was like, okay, this is actually crazy. Like he's actually responding to me. I was like, okay, I like this guy. But no, yeah, you definitely want a coach that actually really cares about your prep or even just lifestyle coaching too. That's super important.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, Chris, we were actually talking about this a few days ago, like, and I still believe it. Like some of the best coaches in the world, they are sprinkled all around the USA, and they don't have the biggest following. They don't have the biggest teams, but they're like, as far as, abilities, they're actually some of the best in the world.
I 100% agree. I mean, here's the thing: what people don't realize too is in the present day world we live in, whether it's bodybuilding or whether it's coaching. And I mean, I know you guys get this with like the whole coaching thing and social media, where like you no longer have to be good at just what you do anymore. But like, let's face it, we all have to be good at social media now. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's like you can be maybe you're a really good coach and you just really just don't care about social media. And the thing is, in today's day and age, you're just going to get looked over. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I mean, this conversation could go down a rabbit hole of people in general. Like social media is the avenue of like, hey, look at me, hey, look at me. And oftentimes the most successful people, they just don't care for the clout, or they're in a different world. And it's sometimes the squeakiest people are getting more attention and more clout over the ones that are actually better or more legit. And that's because like the people that are legit actually either accomplish something and they have like some sort of peace, or they're just busy working. And like maybe they don't post as much, or maybe they don't have your fancy reels, or maybe they don't do whatever or have fancy content. It doesn't mean they're not as educated. How many coaches out there probably have 100 or 1,000 success stories that you don't even know of because they don't share them? you
Right.
know I mean, think about it. Like, how many clients have you had that like they work with you for 6 months or a year, and then they eventually quit, and you're like, oh shit, I never got like a transformation post, or I never got a before and after post. Like, I can't even market this person. You know what I mean? And you're like, that was so much good work on my side, and like I didn't even get a chance to market them. Like, how much of that exists that like we don't even know about? So like, and you have to keep in mind too, like maybe a lot of the really good coaches are the most experienced, and a lot of the experienced people are a little bit of a generation or so behind the social media. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? um this is kind of like, I posted that thing on my story for questions, and one of the questions was, what do I think about? I think it was like science-based lifting, like today, something along those lines.
Yeah,
And
love.
I think that like that's a big thing now today where it's like younger generation and new people like info dump to the nth degree the amount of science and like you know what I mean? And here's the thing is like how many times have you seen it this like 23-year-old kid that's like making a post on like how to build big delts and it's like a science like thesis statement but like the dudes never want to show the dudes never like he doesn't have delts
No adults. Yeah.
like there's no like that's the real resume. I mean let's be real like the people that know like you're not going to pay somebody that doesn't have the body of work. I don't care what you know. Like if you haven't done it, like, and I mean that's me, and I'm sure you guys are probably the same, but like maybe you're not, but
100%.
that's you know that's the world we live in now. So like coming full circle, I'm getting off topic. Like that's the idea. Where like there's a lot of coaches that just because they're not like screaming like, "Hey, I'm a good coach," doesn't mean they're not a good coach. You know that's why like you should give someone the time of day, like talk to them. I mean, usually with like a phone call or an in-person meeting, you can tell how educated someone is, or at least their level of interest. Um, but I think the kind of like, you know, what Ali was saying is, you know, if your coach, if someone fills out an inquiry or your coach isn't responding to you on time, like you know, the proof is in the reading or whatever right there that like that coach is a waste of your time. And I mean, me personally, I think the single most important thing when hiring a coach is you want a coach that wants winners or results. You know what I mean? You want your coach to be as invested in you winning as you are.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's what people don't realize about the top coaches. They've already won.
Mhm.
You know who's a prime example of that? Matt Jansen. Okay. Like, yeah, at some point, say what you want about Matt Jansen, but at some point in time, he had how many guys in the Olympia? He had how many guys at all the national shows? Who knows his story? Who knows all of that? I won't say anything about that, but like, you and I worked with Matt,
Right.
and you know that's why I hired Matt at the time because I was like, it's Matt Jansen, you know what I mean? But guess what? At the time, I was just another IFBB pro on Matt Jansen's like roster,
Yep.
and you know, you did like I didn't actually get that level of like desire. Like, did Matt really give a shit if I won or lost? Probably not, because he's got Nick Walker winning the Arnold Classic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, and that's what people don't realize. Like, you need a coach that's hungry to put out athletes and transformations and wants your business. I mean, it's like anything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I could
It's,
talk about that all day. I mean, I could go on and on.
oh, yeah. And I know you can relate to this one. I mean, over the past, I don't even know how many years, there's too many to count where people have left our team. Not only have they gotten worse on stage, but then they come back realizing this other top name coach doesn't give two shits about them. When it's like, we were there hand holding every step of the way. We're both available for a conversation or an imposing session, and I'm sure you can relate to that too, where it's just like you're putting in 100% and you're going to go to a coach that's maybe going to give you 50.
Yeah. And you know what's the best metaphor for that is relationships. You know, sometimes people get it's a blessing and a curse when they get a really good coach like right off the bat. And they think the day-to-day conversations, they think the weekly check-in conversations, they think going to your shows, they think the detailed plans and the detailed workouts, they think that all coaches do that. And then they learn real hard and real fast that whenever they go to that other coach, that like, oh, hey, here's my cookie cutter routine. Oh, hey, like I gotta wait like 2 days for my response. And then, you know, it's a different game. So then it's like you're saying, it's like, oh shit, like maybe those guys actually were good coaches and I just didn't realize it. And then they come back, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we always are going to welcome someone with open arms. Like people are free to choose any different coach or try something different, but it's always disappointing too when you put 100%, when I mean we've changed our rules. I don't know what rules you have for your coaching team, but like, last year we went to all the shows on our own dollar.
Oh,
everything,
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, you go to these other top
How many
coaches.
how many coaches do you think do that out there?
Yeah.
Very few.
And you know what? I hope everybody watches this because like that's something I never say to any of my athletes. You know what I mean? Like, and you know what? Like, I don't. It's not like I'm expecting it. Like, and I want to say that, but I think it's just kind of the idea that like some of these competitors that have like kind of like come, run through a season or two with me, and then they go on, and it's like, yeah, like I went to your show on my own dime, and then like what they don't realize too is like once you become a successful coach or you have a big client base, how much, let's be real, of an inconvenience that can be to travel to a show. You know what I mean? Because like you guys train, you have all of your own bodybuilding, your preps,
Hmm.
your entire world. You also have a full client base. And then now you're losing anywhere from like 2 to 3 days traveling, being at a show all day, all of that stuff.
PTO.
Yep. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's like, you know, that's just something that people don't realize. And, I mean, well, I guess what can you even do about it, In time they do, I guess.
Yeah, and this says a lot about your character too, because it's like you're not going because you have to go. You're not forced to go to the show. You're going because you want to win. You want to see your clients win. You care about your clients' success. You're not going because you have to.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's why logically, like any client show that I can go to, I do go because that's exactly it. Like, yeah, I mean, I've competed at many shows where my coach wasn't there. Like, how much of an advantage is it versus not? Like, who knows? I'm sure all of us would love our coach to be there. It is nice to have your coach at a show to
Mhm.
watch every meal and check in every person and go through your posing. And they wake up and they're there and they're backstage with you. Like, there's no denying, like, if nothing else, mentally it helps you relax, which is everything for like a peak week. Um, but yeah, like I go like I volunteer and I try and go to the shows and usually like last couple years like I end up like biting off more than I can chew and it's just like wow man I'm freaking burnt out like and but it's like natural like yeah I'll be there I want to see you win you know what I mean
Of
and
course. Yeah.
yeah
And yeah, and also too, they're on stage and your coach is yelling at you or giving you cues so that you look better in front of the judges. Like, I mean, like some of that stuff can't really be replaced, you know?
yeah no that's what I'm saying I mean it's the thing with bodybuilding is like the people that get it
Yeah.
that's what's odd about this sport I'd say maybe 10% of the people actually involved in bodybuilding get it. And when I say it, it's just like everything,
Yeah.
like to those 10% of the people though, like, you found a lifelong friend or like you did an incredible favor. Like, we all know a coach that was there or, when you were there for a client or, the people that like that just that 10%, like it does make it all worth it. You know what I mean? Like it does make the other 90% that don't get it, like it makes all of that worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess switching gears a little bit, um, let's talk about your shows. Like, do you have anything in the works for this year? I believe you got fifth at the Orlando Pro, your last show, right?
Yeah, the last time I competed was 2023. It was 2 summers ago.
Yep.
That was the best I looked. I got
Yeah.
fifth. That was my um yeah, that was my best. And I'm
Yeah.
proud of that. I was gonna compete last year. I wanted to compete in the summertime, and then just what we're talking about happened. I remember I just like took on clients and clients and clients, and like, I'm sure you guys get this to a degree where it's just like embedded in your brain success and winning. And it's like, yeah, more clients, more clients. Like, yeah, like, and it's you eventually that becomes and there's a reason why not many people coach and compete. There's a reason why, like, eventually, like, people tend to go one way or the other because it's hard. It is incredibly hard. It's incredibly, and here's the thing is like, I always was like, yeah, I'm sure it's hard. But like, if you have a high client base, you know, um, and you haven't mastered boundaries yet, like self personal boundaries, it'll just eat you alive. And
Mhm.
that's what happened to me the last couple of years. And last year was like I wanted to compete in the summertime. I started prep at like 20 some weeks out, and it got down to around like 10 to 12. And like I started going through the motions, and I started hating being in the gym. Um, and then it was just like it was like literally like so fast. I was just like mentally unraveling. And then I remember I traveled for a show, and I was trying to get my workout in. And I remember I got to the gym and I was like, I don't even feel like being here. And that was whenever I was like, you know what, F this, I'm done. And that's whenever I just pulled out of the shows last year, um, and like completely unplugged. And so yeah, that's what happened last year. I'd like to compete this year. I'm actually in prep for the Cali Pro.
Right.
Um, you know, I say in prep because I feel like you get at a certain point in time where it's always like you kind of feel like you're always in prep a little bit, like once that time of year comes, and it doesn't get super serious, I guess, maybe until like I guess you start getting hungry and like you really have to start like buckling down, which I'm not truly there yet, but yeah, I would like to compete. I think for my personal like mental well-being, like I need it. I have a lot of like a lot of things going on, and I've learned, through the course of the last year that like I am actually the happiest when I'm most on point with my training. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
and I'm sure you guys get that. Like, um, I feel like if I'm not on point, if I'm not like chasing something, like if I'm not still like in the chase myself, like I kind of become desensitized to all of it. And it's kind of hard. So one day that's gonna be a hard question of what I do whenever I'm done competing.
Right.
Because there's like a small part of me that's like, yeah, I'm gonna kind of unplug and just disappear out of fitness altogether. Um, but I just like me myself mentally, and you can share how you guys feel on this. That's actually a good question for you, but like it's it just feels better whenever you're in a game too. Like, and it doesn't mean you have to be in a prep or but like you're at least doing something. You know what I mean? Like maybe you're just recomping, maybe you're trying to progress, whatever you're doing, maybe you're just eating better. But like when you're not like in some sort of like personal pursuit yourself, I don't know, man. I feel like I just got like desensitized to like any sort of happiness. It was weird.
Yeah. Like you're kind of lost, you know.
Yeah, like I mean, it's kind of like you're just chasing a dopamine hit, and it's like it's really nice to have clients win shows, clients do good, transformation, but like I don't know, like there's just a difference when you yourself are like, just I don't know, doing something. And that's a big
Yeah.
thing with me is like I haven't like totally lost that like need for like the personal, whatever you want to call it. So yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned something a few minutes ago that I can relate to. In 2021, it was the same situation. Um, I won't tell you the amount we spent going to client shows, but I mean, you would be blown away. And that was on our own dollar, and a lot of people know I have a day sales job that I've been doing for forever now. And we went to every single client show that year. And
Wow.
of course, that was my comeback year after all the surgeries, the first time. So I was in prep doing all these, qualifier, multiple national level shows. But I'll tell you, the feedback I got that year and other years too, some clients that are newer, like you were saying, they get it. Like the newer clients are like, on paper, it's like, well, wait a sec. Chris is in prep, Stephanie is in prep. I'm not going to get the attention that I deserve or that I pay for. But it's not true. If you know what you're doing,
Opposite.
yeah, if you've been doing it as long as we have, you're going to get the attention. Not a single, beat was missed. And a lot of the clients like really respect and appreciate that you're like in the trenches with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
So
sure. I mean, that's the team.
Yeah.
it is tough when you travel for the shows. Like, we've been 4 weeks out, 2 weeks out when we're
One
at
week out.
shows. We're out in Pittsburgh or we're out in Chattanooga, wherever. And it's it becomes tiring those weekends because you're like, oh shit, I got to get up and do my cardio at like 4:30 in the morning so I can check on clients at 5:30 and all of this stuff. But I've also like, so my last prep last year, I was kind of going through the motions, started hating my workouts and things. I still did the show because I'm like this hard-headed. I said I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it. And I told myself maybe this means I'm done. And telling everybody like I'm retiring, I'm done. Like this just isn't right. I'm not feeling it. But now come around to 2025 and we've got people on the team starting prep and I'm like I always felt like I've done better and when I feel like I'm doing it alongside of people
Yeah,
sometimes.
for sure.
Like,
That was kind of like when I was in college. I compete. I think I did 4 shows in college, and every semester that I was in a show prep, I got better grades. And it was
Wow.
because I was up every day. I was on point. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There was no staying up. There was no sleeping in. And like whenever I didn't do shows, I was performing average. And I think it goes beyond that too, where it's like it's a simple idea that um and I don't know how to say this without sounding maybe cheesy, but like you want a coach that's like a killer too. And you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like you want a coach that's like up on point training. Like, I mean, and this is like kind of what makes me laugh, like, is like some of these people, like who they hire as coaches or who coaches are nowadays is um, like how? Like
It's
how did
good.
that even, how'd that come to be? Or like why would you ever hire that person? Or like, I mean, I remember, like when uh the first coach I ever actually had was Seth Feroce, because he's a local Pittsburgh guy.
Right.
And when I met Seth, it was like again, I was like, holy shit, man, this is an IFBB pro. Like, wow. Like, I didn't care what his education was. I didn't care like if he could explain like the molecular like breakdown of food and drugs. It was like, dude, you're a pro and whatever you say, I'll do. You know what I mean? Like that's all there was to it. And that is what is lost and what needs people need to have that more where it's like, I don't care if you think squats are targeting your glutes, your hamstrings, or your quads. If I tell you to do 3 sets of 20 and it's going to get you freak legs, like do 3 sets of 20 on squats. Like,
Yeah.
that's the whole throwing the science out the window. Like there's always going to be a level of hardcoreness in bodybuilding.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing a lot of people struggle with is like now there's like a obsession with perfection and chasing the like the perfection. It's like a food plan or like whatever, but it's just like, you know, there is a hardcoreness of and that was like I said, like when I work with Seth, um, there was nothing fancy and it was just like, but I felt so proud to have him as a coach. And like I looked up to him so much. Like it was like, man, this dude's an IFBB pro. Like, holy shit. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like the fact that he was looking at my check-ins every week and that he was looking at my progress pictures. And it was like the night before the show, my show, like I'm talking to Seth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that like that's something that like some people still get and some people respect. And like some people are just like, what does that even mean? Like, who cares? Like, you know what I mean? How many followers does he have on social media? Like, but yeah, I think that's big difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, we know, when Seth, turned pro and, his first few pro shows, I mean, he was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So to have a coach like that of that caliber, I can see where you would be proud,
And it's
and
just like, like whenever I would talk to Seth and we would talk training and, he would be like, okay, for back, this is what I want you to do. And it was just like, all right, man, like Seth told me to do this. Like Seth told me like 4 sets of 15 every exercise, like go do back for 3 hours. And it was just like, we were like, me and my buddies would be so fired up and we would just train all night, like all
yeah,
night. And it was just like, now today it's like, well, that's systemic fatigue, and like, you can't do that, and overtraining. But like, we grew, and we made progress, and like, it's and that's the idea, is like my coach was like a killer. Like, this was like when he was in his law, when he kind of like fell from bodybuilding a little bit, but like it was still the idea that like, man, he was there. And you know what I mean? So that like is like, when your coach is in prep, it's like, well, shit, I better not F this up. Like, my coach is right now. Like, how,
Yeah.
how could I not turn my check in, or how am I not 100%? My coach is going to look at this. And I know right now my coach is out there doing cardio, eating, and training. Like, you know what I mean?
That's so key. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. I always find it funny too, the coaches out there that have never done a prep.
Oh, I mean,
Just talking about it.
How do you relate?
all the time. And you know what? My personal favorite is actually, those are the coaches that too are usually the biggest hard asses. And I see this a lot with guy coaches, where like maybe they were never in contest shape, or maybe they never actually won, or whatever. And then it's like, they'll put out all this content of like, train hardcore, and like, live the grind, and like, shut up and whatever. And it's just like, dude, how does anybody take you serious? Like,
Yeah.
and like, that's when I scratch my head. And I'm just like, what am I missing here? Like, what is this like? What is this like fantasy realm that we're all living in now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I won't name any names, but there's a couple around here, around our area, where it's like, all right, you've never done a show. Not only have you not done a show, you've publicly backed out of the shows at like 1 to 2 weeks out. Like, you couldn't even hang on for a week. That just tells me all I need to know about your mentality. So when
Nope.
I'm struggling, how am I supposed to trust my coach
Yeah.
that just gives up and quits?
That's what I mean. Like, and it's kind of like, I had a client recently. It'll be funny if she watches this, but like, we're doing a bunch of different things. This is like a gut protocol thing, and I'm making so many changes in her plan. And I was like, well, I'm not going to ask you to. She said something about caffeine. I was like, no, I'm not going to ask you to pull out your caffeine, because like, I would never do that myself.
Mhm.
So I never ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do.
Right.
Right.
But the flip to that is, if I tell you to do something, that means I did it. And I likely did it harder than I'm ever telling you to do it. So like, come on now. And I
Yeah.
think that's a big thing too, where it's like you just said, where it's like, if you're in show prep and it's like the last couple weeks, like, because some show preps are obviously harder,
Mhm.
it's usually like the first ones too, where like you don't know what to expect, and you usually have to push harder, versus like maybe being more experienced. But it's just like, yeah, like whenever I was 18, I starved myself to get in shape. So like, yeah, trust me, you're gonna be okay. And it's like kind of like one of those things. I did it. So like, you can trust me, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I have a client, she's a current client and a good friend. And, she's worked with a few coaches, but, she had high hopes when she hired me. We got into prep, and, she's a workhorse. Like, she doesn't question anything, and she just goes to work. Not one complaint the entire 20-week prep. And, the cardio got high, like when she came to me, we weren't like in the ideal spot, like to start a prep. But to her, it didn't matter. It was all about the mindset. And, the whole time I'd like hit the submit, the send email, and I'm like, oh gosh, like this is brutal. This one's gonna hurt. Send it. And then just wait for the reply. And then, she replies and, goes to work. Not a single complaint. And it turns out, because everything was in line how it should be, she's never had a prep where she's felt this good. And she was eating more than she ever, had in a prep. Yeah, she was doing a ton of cardio, but everything was in line to where I'm wondering, like, man, how's she handling this? But turns out, I mean, everything was just perfect. It was like the smoothest prep ever.
Yeah, I had a conversation with it. I forget who recently about this, but like, I forget what it was, but it was something along the lines of, we all want to ideally have a perfect off season. and be healthy and injury free and not sick, and you know your food comes up so high in the off season and you're still in great shape, and then it just flows right into a prep and you have no plans. And then sometimes like it's nowhere near as ideal as that, but the person wants it, and that literally just changes everything. And I mean, you could have no job and have someone cooking all your meals, like, and you could be going against a single mom working 3 jobs. And if she want, like, it sounds cheesy, but if she wants it more, man, she just gets it done. And like, so, and I know that you guys probably know this sometimes, like when you're picking shows with clients, and like you said, like you're looking where they are, like, maybe they're not ideally where you want, but it's just like you can tell they want it.
Mm-hmm.
They get it done, and it's just like that actually works much better than your typical like young guy that's in great shape at 20 weeks out that like he can't do anything with for 4 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And I always find,
mindset is everything.
shout out to the ladies, but I always find, in over 2 decades of coaching, hands down, they are the strongest when it comes down to the mental side of it. You know, a lot of them will not complain. I don't hear complaints. And like you're saying about the young guys, it's always like, I always feel like those guys, they always want to tell you, Chris, what they're going to do. And then it's like, the only thing that they do is they quit the prep,
Yeah.
you know?
This
I
is this
never
is
complained to my coach, just to my husband.
what's funny is like some of the things guys complain about. I was like, oh my God, would I never tell my coach that? Like, man to
We've
man,
talked about this.
I would never say that to another guy, because like, wow, dude. And it's just like you hear it all the time now. But that is like my single biggest rant with like coaching is like the women just like destroy the men. It's not even close. Like,
Yeah.
He had a guy in the past complaining about the cardio, and he's like, look, I've got women doing double the cardio you're doing. Are you going to let them outwork you? His response,
Don't be a bitch.
no, that guy's
Oh.
response was, yep, I'm going to let them outwork me.
it's
Damn, just
no
taking
reply.
the L.
it's depressing. Yeah, I feel like every female I have on my roster is just like a total killer. You know what I mean?
I
I
love
mean,
it.
they wouldn't be working with me. They'd be working with some other coach. Like, if they weren't, obviously they hired me because they are. But the guys that come, man, it's just you and I talked about this before, where it's just like, and it's like I have such little patience for it. Like, I'm like, and who is the worst is the bodybuilders. It is, man.
Yeah.
They are like literally the worst. And
Yeah.
now here's the thing. I'm not saying every guy is. Like, there's still obviously like, good male clients. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a
100%.
universal statement, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like I coach like 3-to-1 ratio females versus males. And like I just had some guys that come through. It's just like, my God, dude, like, this is it? This is the best you got? Like, and it's like you said, the females don't complain.
Mm-mm.
I mean, personal training, like, some of these workouts I put some of these women through, and then it's like, I know the guys couldn't do it, like, without a doubt. Like, and it, obviously the weight would be different, but it's just like, that's been my biggest rant for years. I think that like men as a whole have just like, ugh.
Yeah. The standard has been lowered, just so tremendously that it's just like there almost is no standard.
There isn't. And the problem is, here's a prime example is like, Iron Physique gym. Like, on any given day you walk in there, every girl in that gym probably has her headphones on, training hard. And then you look at the guys that are just like, like on their phones. You know what the single biggest thing that like ruin men is? Cell phones. It is social media and cell phones, because it's like it just like made them brain dead. Like, there's no desire to like I don't know, be an alpha male, I guess. And I'm sure there's gonna be guys watching this that are gonna like, crucify me for saying this, but like It's the truth. Coaches know this. If there's any other coach that watches this podcast, they're going to be like, yep. And I know other coaches. I have conversations with other coaches like the stuff that these guys, I mean, complaining about the foods, literally like the foods.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I can't eat that. Like, can I do this? And like, you know what I mean? And I mean, here's the thing is like, I am flexible. Like, it isn't my way or the highway. Like, I'm not like that at all.
Right.
But like, it's just like females are likely to just find a way to get it done and they'll get it done. Guys are the one like, I can't get all that food in. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, dude, you wake up, you plan your day. Like, it ain't that hard. You know what I mean? Like, but
And
yeah, I
oh,
could
I'm not,
I could rant all night about that. That's like my
I
single way.
know.
And it's the bodybuilders. It's like, and I'll call them out. Like I will just like shit on them because it's like the bodybuilders are the ones that have the hardest route in terms of like the length of time. Like
Mhm.
you're gonna have to put 10 years in if you want to become a legit open bodybuilder.
Right.
And those are the ones that are the most delusional. Those are the ones that usually don't know how to push food or train hard or push the limits. And that's why I crush it. I don't even tolerate. I'm just like, don't even waste your time because you literally just, it's out of your league. Like,
Yeah.
that's it.
And yeah, I'm not gonna say this one's the worst one, but it's like, hey Chris, I've had 2 meals. I'm looking so flat. Should I go and do a refeed? Should I do a cheat meal? And it's like, no, you're not even close to shredded. You are supposed to be flat. You're gonna be flat the entire prep. Like you're
This
not
is
losing your muscle. You should be flat.
this is bodybuilding. When you're in prep, you're small, and when you're in the off season, you feel fat. Like that's
Yeah.
there's maybe 2 weeks either way that like we like how we look and we like how we feel. And then the rest of the year, it's like, I'm getting sloppy or I'm losing size. Like that's what we do.
Mhm.
Isn't it funny how, it's crazy. Like I'm a logbook guy, like Milos. Like I can go through my phone. There's 45,000 pictures on my phone. You know,
Wow.
half of those are client folder, and then the rest are dogs, her, and then show pictures. And I have like an album for almost every single one of my shows. And you can go back and you remember like, oh yeah, here's where I was one day out, posing with Seth Feroci like you, and you just like, oh, I just look like shit. But then looking back now, you're like, I can't believe I was in that type of shape. I mean, it's just crazy, with the dysmorphia. And then looking back, I'm looking back and I'm like, how was I not happy with that performance?
Yeah. This, that always that goes. That's a pendulum that can swing two ways. Like there is a level of delusion that's needed to be successful. You
Yeah.
know, like you got to have the balls to pick certain shows to win, and pick certain goals. And there is a level of like delusion where like you simultaneously need to think that you're the best and that no one can beat you and you deserve that. And then there also needs to be the delusion with that too of like you're never satisfied, like you're delusional with looking at yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean that's it's the balancing of both of that. And it's like we all face that where it's like, you're never big enough, you're never lean enough or you've never accomplished enough or like that's the thing is, it's what is, and the funny thing is ironically, the other side of the spectrum of all of that is people that have accomplished nothing have the most confidence, and people that have the lousiest physiques somehow have the most confidence. It's like guys that hit on, like some guys that hit on women. It's like the gas station guys hitting on you, or the guy asking you what your squat is. It's never like some stud dude. Like it's some
No,
dude.
no, never.
It's some hillbilly working at the gas station probably saying it. You know what I mean? So like those are the guys with the most confidence because they just don't care and they're that level delusional.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, this has been great, man. I kind of want to wrap it up with some advice. What would you give? Two things. It's a two-parter. So, what would you give? What's your biggest piece of advice for the beginner? And then what's the biggest piece of advice for not necessarily a veteran, but let's say someone who's been in it, but they haven't arrived yet. They haven't won the overall, they haven't gotten their pro card yet, or whatever it may be.
I think that's a good question. I think the biggest piece of advice someone new to the game or newer would be there's multiple advices to that. One is if you can, when you can, tap into people's knowledge. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but like, if you have the chance to work with someone that like is good or like work out with someone that's good. Like I had this conversation with one of my clients the other day. She's a very successful competitor and I asked her if people train with her and she's like, no. And it's just like, why would people not work out with you? And she offers it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, if you're new, I think this one of the single biggest things that actually attributed to like all of my success in life is I was always humble and I had humility. And like, I always like knew big picture that like everybody, this sounds a little bit manipulative, but like everybody can have a role in my success.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, I might need him, I might need her. Like, it's just about learning off people. Yeah. And, kind of tapping into that. You take that and then you just take like a vicious work ethic. And like, you have to like, you have to be open-minded. You have to put the time in. And you got to be ballsy to like, just, it's the cliche thing of just like making moves and like following it through. Like, yeah, you just got to, I think it comes down to, you just got to strap in, train hard, and, tap the knowledge. You have to be an open book to keep learning. I mean, that's one of the single biggest things is like learn. Like you want to have people in your corner, but you can't depend on them. So like you should be learning your body. You should be any way that you can get better, you should be taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I love that.
And then I think for like the person that's got more skin in the game, whether they're on any level, I think, and this is something that I relate to personally, where it's like, because at a certain point in time, people talk about how long can you compete
Mm-hmm.
and how many years do you have left. And I think the single biggest thing with that is like, I don't think it's like the physicality that like makes most people retire or kind of fade away. I think it's just the interest. And I think it's like the drive. And I'm sure you guys can relate to this somewhat, but like at a certain point in time, you stop doing some exercises. You start to think that like, maybe fasted cardio is not as important. Or, maybe getting my step count in, that doesn't matter. Or maybe doing post-workout cardio doesn't matter. Or maybe it doesn't matter if I do a stepper. But you look, whenever you started your career, you did all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You did the hard cardio, you dieted the hardest, you trained the hardest. And now at a certain point in time, it's like, man, like you do become a little bit more science-based. Well, like, yeah, it doesn't matter if I wake up early and do that anymore. Or it doesn't matter if I do this. And, I'll speak for myself. Like in the gym, you reach a certain point where it's just like you can go in and train hard, you have enough size, you have enough success, and it's just like, yeah, and you're just kind of going through the motions. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. And then they eventually get bored and they quit. And I think that like to the people that are like kind of like pushing the upper limits, it's like you just need to kind of reset and become a beginner again and start to nail all the things that matter, like getting on point with your diet and like following that diet, like having a more on point off season, holding yourself to a higher standard, like using the logbook again for your workouts. Like, are you trying to beat your numbers in the gym? Are you trying to progress? Or are you just going in there and getting pumps now? Yeah, you haven't changed your look in 5 years because you're getting a pump in the gym. You're not doing anything. And it's just like, I think that like it was John De La Rosa that said this in an interview like a year or two ago. And it kind of really hit me. It's like, we can progress for a lot longer than we can. It's just, do we want to? And I think that for a lot of us, I mean, it's different levels, obviously. It's just like, do you still want it? Like, do you still want to go there? And I mean, I'll be honest myself. Sometimes I look at the stuff I did 5, 10 years ago and I was like, how in the hell did I ever do that? Like, man, I was a nut. And it's like deep down inside, it's like, you can do it. It's just like, do you want to do it? You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's the advice with that.
Yeah, that's so key, man. I don't think you could have said it better,
Oh yeah.
honestly. That's just that one hit for sure.
I would have done anything back in 2000.
Exactly.
18,
Well, no, when did I start? 2015.
50. Yeah.
You could have told me to do anything, and I did some dumb stuff, like,
Yep.
like, but I just followed the plan, and now I'm like, would I do that again? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean that even goes with being disciplined sometimes where it's like, oh well, I weigh this much and I'm this disciplined, like, yeah, I can eat this one day and it's not gonna matter. And it's just like, but man, 5, 10 years ago, it's like I would have never literally like that didn't even exist to me. You know what I mean? Like I didn't need an alarm clock. I jumped out of bed. And now it's like, well, I gotta sleep in my room with my blankets and my temperature this way. And it's like I think with a lot of people they just get soft. And I think that it's normal, but it's just like it's can you just keep tapping into that like that deep animal instinct to just like keep improving. I actually think that the physicality of the sport and most sports is one of the least things that actually end careers. I think it's just people like mentally fizzle out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely super, eye-opening and motivating too.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
for sure. I mean,
just
I feel like,
just hearing it.
and I mean, it's like the thing we talk about with coaching. It's like, eventually it becomes like, well, I'm coaching and, I got my other jobs and it's like, bodybuilding, let's kind of put that over here. But, when you're a teenager or you're in your early 20s, it's like bodybuilding. And then everything else is like, like down around here. But then it's like, oh, we're adults now. Like, oh, let's take bodybuilding and kind of set it over here. And, let's be mature and build our business and like, have our careers. And that just explains it. Like it's priorities.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, man. We definitely have to have you on again because I feel like, I mean, this could go on for all night pretty much.
Yeah, that was a blast. I love that. I
Yeah.
love to come on again. It
We'll
was, it
we'll
was
definitely bring you on. For people that want to hire you, where can they reach you? Give me some info for the viewers here.
well, my Instagram is just my name, C_DiDomenico. You can message me on there or you can visit my website. It's just my full name, ChrisDiDomenico.com.
Perfect.
Boom.
All right, man. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. And like I said, we will definitely have you on again. Make sure you subscribe, comment. Yeah, super motivating. So we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
See you,
you.
bud.